Hi everyone, welcome back to What's the FinTech, your FinTech Feel Good show. Today we are doing a very special episode with Sheryl from Money2020, where we have a very special guest, Shiman, who is the CEO of YTL AI Labs and also the Chief Product Officer of Ryt Bank. Sheryl, over to you.
Today we are joined by Chee Mun. So Chee Mun is the CEO of YTL AI Labs and Chief Product Officer of Ryt Bank, which is Malaysia's first AI-powered digital bank. And prior to this, Chee Mun was the first Malaysian fintech founder to list on the New York Stock Exchange for MoneyLion. MoneyLion is a full-service digital platform that leverage AI, machine learning, and behavioral science to deliver mobile banking and investment solutions to the American market. And prior to that, Chee Mun was a founding member of Simulex, where he worked on behavior prediction projects for the US Department of Defense and Fortune 500 companies. This is quite a journey, and I have to ask, how did your early work in AI and the US Department of Defense influence your approach to fintech?
That's a good question. The truth is that I didn't get into AI because I thought AI was interesting. I got into AI when I was at Purdue University. I needed to go on a summer trip, and I didn't feel good of using my dad's money to go on a summer trip. So I went to work at a research lab. And the highest paying research lab at the time was an AI research lab for human behavior predictions. So that's what I did. That's what I did for a couple of years. And so when I was graduating, the Professor Alok, invited me to start a company with him, commercializing and utilizing the technology that we developed in the research lab to help the Department of Defense to predict human behavior, societal behavior, community behavior for different part of the war that the Department of Defense was really interested at the time. You can imagine what country was that. It was Afghanistan, Iraq, and all those stuff. And then we ran the company for about 10 years, and then when it was acquired by a much bigger defense contractor, that was when me and a couple of buddies of mine thought that was circa 2012, 2013, when the tail end of the great financial crisis. So the big banks in the US were retreating from the middle Americans, and it's not because it's fun to retreat from them, or it's simply because it costs a lot to serve them, and potentially the ROI is just not there. So our thesis was that by utilizing AI and the forefront of technology, we will be able to bring sort of like a full banking services, private banking services to the middle Americans in the price point where it can be profitable. So that's what we did, and that's our thesis, and that thesis actually powered MoneyLion for more than 10 years to a height that is reasonably incredible.
Got it. That's actually really interesting because you got into AI not because you were particularly interested in AI, but because, hey, it makes financial sense. But also, just very quickly, and I don't know if you will be able to answer this because you did the work with the US Department of Defense, but anything interesting to share about like human behavior that you learned during those years?
That's a good question, and the truth is this. Whatever that we are trying to do within the human behavior prediction is reasonably similar to what we are doing in finance. Essentially, when you want to determine credit worthiness for a person, you it's not a single dimensional, right? So it depends on the multifaceted lives of a person. Like potentially, if a person has got family, if a person is at the middle age, what is the career path that the person is in? So these are all the kind of multifaceted data that goes into the kind of prediction, and in the other part of the world where we are predicting potentially a slightly more a grim situation where who are more likely to turn into suicide bombers. The similar underlying behavior actually contribute towards potentially your credit behavior, your financial product selections, and how likely you are going to buy certain financial products. So it's interesting. It's because my previous job in Similex, we were predicting stuff that is gonna happen like 5 to 10 years ahead of time. So a lot of times it takes a long time for you to know if your prediction is correct. So and part of the reason why I chose to switch was that I just think that this kind of prediction will be a lot faster in finance, which is true, right? And thus there are more skin in the game when we do this kind of predictions.
It's quite interesting. I didn't know that the behavior of a human can be also predicted for anything else than just financial, goals, or like maybe like a purchase goals. But if you can have like the same behavior for what you just described, it's quite interesting. I have another question, but mostly focusing on you. It's what was your motivation to shift your focus from the US fintech scene and come back here in Southeast Asia? And what also exciting you the most about this region?
That's a good question, and like everything else, it's driven by a set of events that is happening. So firstly, it was driven by I was running MoneyLion at the time, and that was the time frame that Singapore had their requests for applications for their digital banking licenses. So and we had MoneyLion had an office of about 300 engineers and AI scientists in Kuala Lumpur. So we just thought that, hey, maybe as part of the expansion, it might make sense to look into Singapore. And this was spurred by a couple of VCs that we invested in this as well. So we started looking into it. Long story short is that we started looking for partners, and eventually we didn't find a lot of tractions and theses within the Singapore ecosystem. So then someone else was saying like, hey, we know that Malaysia is coming out with one as well. Would you guys want to look into that? And we look into it, and then we started to shop around for partners, and then we found a very worthy partner in Aeon, and thus we were partnering with them on the application part. Unfortunately, after the application, there was this big fintech plus tech crash in the stock market in the US, and thus we decided that we will put a pause in our expansion into other countries. And conserve our capital to concentrate on the U.S. market predominantly. So then again, as life goes, I was running MoneyLion for 10 years, and after 10 years of night course, I just thought, hey, maybe it's time for me to move on. So I embarked into a 1-year retirement plan, and it was kind of fun. It's highly recommended. I always thought that it is not the quality of time that you spend with your family, is the quantity of time that you spend with your family. So that's what I did. I exited from MoneyLion, was taking a year of retirement, not doing much. And then there's this chap called Han Yo from YTL approached me and say, hey, we've been looking around, and you're pretty much the only guy who can help us to build a digital bank. And it will be really cool if you can help us to build a digital bank with mostly Malaysians, and it's historical to build a bank in, like, say, Singapore or Malaysia, because there are not too many banks around, right? So I give it a thought, and to me is that the more exciting thing is the fact that there was like 2023-ish, and there was the confluence of two vector of technology, which I think will change the way that we build systems significantly. The first was obviously generative AI, because ChatGPT was released like a few months ago, and this kind of technology, generative AI technology, keep breaking the benchmarks for software engineering. So I just thought, hey, maybe if I can build a system from ground up with the first principle using generative AI, it can be an interesting opportunity. The other thing is the low code, no code technology, and I think that the two conference will significantly increase the productivity in the area of system building. So that's when I started to look into building a bank in Malaysia, and sure enough, it's a very interesting market. As you know, Southeast Asia alone has like 500 to 600 million people, but it is a conglomerate of tapestry of very different regulations, culture, languages, and everything else. So it is a different sort of problems, and it is a problem that I think I will want to be involved in. Firstly, because I'm Malaysian, and secondly is that I just think building something after so many years, building something in the US, building something for this region can be an interesting challenge.
Yeah, very interesting. Definitely Gen AI and no code are resonating with me a lot. I'm using a lot of the solutions every day, actually. And I mean, like, it made my workflow and process easier to, for example, run podcast, write newsletter, or also like do personal stuff. I totally get it. But so, sorry, you mentioned a couple of very cool items, but one of the items was building an AI ecosystems and an AI bank. And this sounds very interesting, but also a massive task, right? So, what are the biggest challenges you are facing, and how do you manage them?
So I think AI for the last 12 months to 18 months has been significantly progress. And even if you're talking about AI in last 6 months ago versus now, there's a big difference, right? So if you look at it's even more significant when you look at it not just from personal productivity standpoint, but from an organizational productivity standpoint. Case in point is that we built MoneyLion to a pretty full service bank using 200 engineers, 300 engineers. And one of the challenge that I wanted to take on when I built the Ryt Bank was to build it with 20 engineers and in 6 months' time. And I just think that is possible. And that's what we did. We built the 1.0 of the bank in 6 months' time. And this is a much more complicated bank as well. Right. So you can see how this AI technology doesn't just affect it when you look at it from a higher level, from an organizational level. I think the effect is much greater than what you realize, even from the great improvement of your personal productivity improvement. The other thing is that what I constantly impressed with, and I think it has a lot of implication on how companies are being ran, and what kind of company that will be set up in the near future, is the fact that in MoneyLion, we built our own CRM, and it took about 10, 15 engineers a few years to build. And in the Ryt Bank, we have one engineer to build it. And in 6 months' time, we have our own CRM. So this tells you the era of personal software is here, which means that instead of utilizing software that is being built for a lot of people, and you customizing it for yourself, or you work around a lot of features so that it works for you, it is cheap enough and risk-free enough to build a software that is potentially just for you. In our case in point is that in the Ryt Bank, we built software specifically for our ops team that is so tailored to them. So they enjoy it because it's entirely tailored to them, rather than using a run-on-the-mill CRM systems.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and especially like talking about like building and customizing a CRM for not just for the team but also for the person itself, right? Which is something that, like, as I've been doing sessions, I've been seeing a lot of like the recurring themes of like when to build, when to buy, that sort of thing, right? But I wanted to just double click on the talent portion, because you mentioned very quickly that you had to build a team of engineers, and also seeing how you had to be pulled out of retirement because you were the only person for the job, right? So as with the global AI race heating up, and we also see signs of how Southeast Asia is battling the talent crunch, ecosystem gaps in the global AI race, right? We have been seeing like corporates, the tech giants and also governments across Southeast Asia come up with programs to train talents in AI. Like in Singapore, we have AISG. And then, so especially in today's context, developing local talent is so crucial for the growth. So, what strategies do you find effective in attracting and retaining talent in this field other than pulling people out from retirement?
That's a good question. And I think my take on talent can be a little unintuitive. As previously, when I was in the US, I was mostly a CTO in Silicon Valley and New York and whatnot, right? So I got used into hiring talent. When I moved back to Malaysia, frankly, it was tough because everyone was telling me that there's very little talent. But very soon you also discover that it's not true. It depends on how you find them. Most talent are not hungrily looking for jobs, so the way to find them can be very different. And I think in a lot of Southeast Asian countries, we talk about brain drain, and I think my counterintuitive thinking is that Malaysia doesn't actually have brain drain, because you cannot have lack of talent and brain drain at the same time, right? Because you don't have enough brain to drain, right? So those phenomena just doesn't happen together, right? So if you ask me, I think we do have brain drain because we have a lot of talent, and our problem, frankly, is the demand for this talent and how to provide top quality job for this talent. So and you're right. How do we retain this talent becomes a challenge, because especially for MoneyLion KL, after we became reasonably scaled and with certain level of reputation, people do poach from us. And the truth is that firstly, there is no other way to retain talent. Like the first principle is that you have to pay them at least market rate, right? So there is no question about it. So, but obviously, secondly, is that always provide good amounts of purpose in their work, and that is why recruiting for the Ryt Bank, for example, have been easier than MoneyLion, simply because we are building a product that their parents can use, they can use. So which is a bit different from MoneyLion in that particular sense. But retaining tech talent is the name of the game for a lot of not just CTOs but CEOs as well. Essentially is not to coddle the talent, but to challenge the talent. I think a lot of like really good talent wants to be challenged appropriately, and pay them good enough salary.
It's quite interesting. This come back to another question I have in mind. So, because you face talent in the USA, as you mentioned, now you are facing talent in Southeast Asia. Do you think it's easier to find the talent in the same country, or do you collaborate with people from different countries? How you source the talents to come to your team, and what it takes for you to bring them to work with you? Is it like your reputation? Is it the projects you are working with a bank? Is it anything you can like share with us?
The truth is that again, like I say, I think I operate in the Malaysian market. When I was operating in the US market, it's always interesting because US it has many cities, right? So unlike most Southeast Asian countries where you have one major city and that's about it, most talent just stay in that city, right? Whereas in the US, you recruit talent all over the cities, and most time than not, you have to allow certain level of remote work because when you're in New York and some of the guys are actually living in Atlanta and the talent seems to be there. But in KL it's different. I think office culture is extremely interesting simply because, frankly, I think similar to Hong Kong or Singapore is that most talent situated in KL anyway within Malaysia. So office culture is extremely important. Find ways for them to be extremely productive. I think most ambitious people that you hire want to be productive, and anything that counterproductive will frustrate them. So for me, is that my job is to build an organization that constantly tweak to reduce the effects of that can be counterproductive, and these generally do contribute towards happier working relationships. I seriously think that free lunch and all those stuff are good, but if you have top-notch, ambitious talent, free lunch is just not a thing. They would rather to build something that is significant and affect a lot of lives.
Got it. So building towards a product that can be shared by the brightest and the best top talent. So which brings us very, very nicely into diverting this topic to Ryt Bank itself, which is Malaysia's first AI-powered digital bank. So as the CPO, what is your vision for it, and how do you plan to leverage AI to enhance the entire banking process?
So for that, to describe that, I think I'm just going to describe the industry and the generative AI revolution. In MoneyLion, what we did was that we did a lot of AI in the back office work. For example, we completely our loan underwriting process were entirely done by AI, so there's no human touching it. And that is billions of dollars of loans a year, right? So that actually displays once upon a time about 80 human underwriter, and you can see how the effects of AI on that, right? So with the advent of generative AI, I think it's more interesting because for the longest time, we live in the von Neumann way of computing, where if you want to make a computer to do something for you, you have to learn the computing language, right? So like Java, Python, or even like Bash scripts and whatnot. The generative AI is the first time in computing history that the LLM computer actually understand human natural language. So you can tell it naturally how you say stuff, or how you type stuff, or even how you consume artifacts that were aimed at a regular human being. And the computer will be able to understand it and will be able to do something for you regarding that. So I think the next 5 years, much of the innovation will be understanding the human-computer interaction with generative AI. So what we did in the Ryt Bank is that we want our users to be able to interact with banking systems in the most natural way. So we will be the first action and voice to text and voice to action interface for banking in Malaysia and possibly in Southeast Asia as well. So which means that if I say pay Sheryl $50 for lunch, it will pay Sheryl $50 for lunch. So and I can upload invoices, and it immediately knows that where to pay to and how much and the reasons for it. So these are the kind of innovation that we are exploring, and we suspect this is not just it, right? The AI has been advancing so fast. So I think that will be a fertile ground for constant innovation for the next few years at least. What we want to do is that the interface will completely disappear, and our AI agent within the interface will be sort of your financial butler, so to say, or financial helper, and it is much. And when we were testing this kind of interface out, it's really interesting, right? So you have it is really useful for two spectrum of users. The first spectrum of users are the power users, right? The people who will do things like pay Mike $50 divided by 2 for lunch, right? So, and this is our understanding, it's very power usage. The reason why you want to do it firstly is to save time, right? And it's a lot more intuitive. So that will be one end of the users. And the other end of the users are possibly people that are a bit older of the generation, where they need a bit of coaching. So they will say pay, and then the LLM will ask okay, who do you want to pay to and how much? And kind of coach this person towards the payment process. And this single interface is actually helpful to do these two ends of spectrum of users, so to say. So which is, I think is a very interesting, and to be honest, this is something that we'll continuously be discovering as we go.
Yeah, just very quickly, I want to, because when you talked about the voice to action function, right? And because Singapore and actually Malaysia and the rest of Southeast Asia, but especially in Malaysia, it's so cosmopolitan. You have various accents, you have various dialect groups, which, okay, yes, you eventually have larger data sets to train your models to understand, okay, instead of send Cheryl $50, you have an accident because of the way that I pronounce it, actually accidentally sent $500. But that also brings me to another question. So how do you instill trust for the everyday lay people who might not be used to AI, that, okay, if I voice to speech, voice to action $50, it will indeed safely and quickly send my money to the intended person? How do you get people to trust in AI in today's day and age?
That's a good question, right? This is firstly, I think our initial problem is to instill habit, right? Because this is a new habit. People are not used to pay people using this kind of natural language, right? So firstly, how do we instill that habit, right? So I think these are all behavioral economics that we have to put within the app itself, right? So, and then secondly is that once a habit is formed, how do we put enough friction in such a way that because generative AI are probabilistic, so and so are human. So so when you tell someone that hey, could you help me to pay someone something? A lot of times, in your mind, you will double check if that is correct. So how do you build that kind of flow that, as a human being saying to the computer system, pay someone a certain amount of money? I get the habit of double checking as well. So it's about designing the user interface for this kind of natural human instincts. So, and again, these are all consideration when we designed the product, and I suspect this will be something that when we roll it out, we'll have a lot to learn. The problem of being the first doing this kind of stuff is that you don't have textbook, you don't have a map, right? So you're building your own map. And yes, I don't think I have a very clear answer as to how, but other than let's see, it's gonna be an adventure. So
it's quite interesting because most of the bank today who have like operation for maybe like many years focus mostly on operation and improvement of the customer journey. For example, you have an issue, you want to call your call center, and the call center will have an AI power system who can help to translate from voice to text what the customer wants, have sentiment analysis, but also helps the person on the call center to get a transcript of the discussion and then a report at the end to validate if it's supported or not. What I've seen also on the market is like companies developing their own GPT. So, for example, X name of the bank GPT, just to make sure that we don't have like any leakage on the market. Or otherwise, like some companies are doing also like what they call enterprise knowledge base, just to get all the procedures and policies and some of the internal informations to the employees directly. But for you, what you are doing is directly to the customer. So bringing a new habits and the new tools to them. So how do you think about it? How do you operate this creation of this new product to be launched, for example? And why can you focus on this and not focus on the improvement of the process? Maybe because you're already digital.
the truth is that we are focusing on the improvement of the process in our operation rooms and everything as well. We are also focusing on the improvement of the process in underwriting, and we are using AI all over. But it's just that I guess one of the side effects of having an AI guy as your chief product officer is that your main product will be AI-ized, unlike any other banks. So I think it's a side effect that was quite intended by the stakeholders. But however, we do have AI sprinkled across, like especially the back office stuff, because most of my experience with AI in financial services is actually back office, especially if you think about from a MoneyLion standpoint, right? So yeah, and the reason why we bring AI to our end users, and it's mostly something that most even digital banks in Malaysia at least, or Southeast Asia don't usually do, is simply because of our intention to have the most natural, humanized way of interacting with computer. I think the way that we interact with computers is going to change significantly in the next 3 to 5 years time. And 5 years time, you would think, oh wow, that user interface that CIMB is using to transfer, that is so 90s, right? So this is something that I think it's not just for banking, it's not just what we do. I think that is going to be the general trend in the next 3 to 5 years for the whole computing industry. That's where the bulk of the innovation is going to be.
Okay, quite interesting. So you spoke about the 90s right now. If you speak about the future, 5 years, 10 years from now, what are the most interesting emerging trends like you can see on AI, and which one will have the most significant impact in the region here in the next coming years?
I think AI is hugely interesting of a technology. which is a bit different from the previous revolution that we have, like for example the internet revolution, right? What it did was that it democratized the distribution of information, right? So it becomes the distribution becomes zero. So it used to be like you have to buy newspaper and all the stuff, but now that kind of distribution just doesn't make sense anymore, right? So with AI is very different because what it does is that it makes human intelligence to be more democratized, right? So what does that mean, right? So that means that human intelligence is not just your IQ, right? It's just not your problem solving ability. It's also about your culture, right? It's also about your language. It's about your sensibility. It's about, so what that means is that it's about your humanness, right? So in the next 5 years, so I think a lot of times is that it brings us closer to our humanity, where instead of focusing on things like, like on a daily basis, you focus on things that are very logistical, uh, like bringing your kid to school, or going to work yourself, or like transferring documents from here to there and notifying everyone, summarizing certain documents. I think those logistical tolls will be generally be reduced, and we get more time to focus on our general humanity, what we want to perform, right? That are the most important to us. Case in point being in the endeavor of software development. For the longest time, we had to understand the syntax, we have to debug the syntax, we have to install the right packages and everything like that. Now, in the era of generative AI programming, what they call the wipe programming, or wipe coding, is that you tell the computer to do something, and it will automatically install the packages. It will automatically write most of the code, and you get to examine it, and it will automatically deploy the code, debug if it doesn't work, right? So then it frees you up as an engineer to think about, okay, what exactly do I want to build, rather than how I want to build it. So where the how I want to build it is the logistical part of getting something built, right? So which I'm personally, I'm very excited about, because that just means that more and more people are going to provide solutions for me to go around my life easier, to go around my life more effectively. So I think going forward, from an AI technology standpoint, a lot of, it depends on how you look at it. A lot of things that you don't really want to do most times, you don't have to do it anymore. But the problem is that a lot of people that specialize doing things that are logistical probably will be displaced, and then this is a societal problem that I think a lot of government, society will have to confront with. Something that, yeah, I think most countries will have to think about.
Yeah, which, and it brings me to a question that, like, honestly, it keeps me up at night. The environmental impact of AI. Because as AI continues to grow, so will its environmental footprint, right? And then we know that training a single large language model is it consumes a lot of electricity, emits a lot of carbon dioxide, and every other company seems to be developing their own large language model. And then even as a consumer, as an individual consumer, every time I type in ChatGPT, hey, what should I have for lunch today? That takes up, what is it, like 500 bottles of water? And it's equivalent. So as an individual, as a consumer, it weighs very heavily on my mind. Like, I actually try not to use ChatGPT as much because of that. But being as an AI expert in the field, right, how do you balance the benefits of AI, which we all know very, very well, with the need to mitigate its environmental impacts? Last question. It's a tough
It's
thing.
a it's a very good question, and as you know, there is no simple answer to it. I think they on one side it greatly enhance the productivity, the efficiency of a lot of workloads, a lot of processes, and thus it greatly enhance the quality of our life to that degree, right? And then obviously to make that happen, there's no question about it that the unprecedented amounts of power plants are being built and unprecedented amounts of water supply is being built because data centers in this day and age are all liquid cooled. So, um, um, however, I think it's also encouraging to see a lot of big companies and a lot of countries are moving towards a more sustainable or cleaner type of energy. If you look at how Microsoft is investing in nuclear technology, I do think that nuclear technology is a cleaner type of technology and the better way to produce electricity. Maybe Southeast Asia will catch up eventually. And if you look at my current company, we have a 500 megawatt data center in Kulai, Johor, and it's powered by a 500 megawatt solar farm next to it. So I think the bad thing is that it is using more energy. The good thing is that people are looking into the problem more because it becomes a bigger problem, and thus people tend to innovate with those problem space. Yeah. So, but I don't have a very short answer as to describe the situation or even solution that
No.
the whole
It does make me
situation.
feel a bit better, especially with your solar farms.
What is your take on all the big countries taking like some initiative and investments on Gen AI, on AI? So like USA spending $1 billion, Europe as well. I'm not sure if Malaysia and other countries in Southeast Asia are doing it. I think Singapore also have a plan, right, Cheryl?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your take on this? It will be my last question for today.
So I think that can be the topic of our next podcast because I think okay, see the main reason is that I can talk 40 minutes or 2 hours about this, right? Is because I think in the medium to longer term, I think we are woefully as society woefully underestimate the impact of AI on our daily lives. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you will look back and say, "Oh wow, I didn't see that coming." Right? So, what does that mean? So that brings us to another heavy topic, which is sovereign AI, because, like I say, right, unlike the previous technology revolution, like internet, like mobile, internet is very simple. It's pipe, right? It's logistical from transferring one bit to another, right? So internet for Singapore is the same as internet for Malaysia, the same as internet for the US. AI is not, right? As we surmise, is that it's about culture, it's about language, it's about our sensibility, right? And culture is something is that is different everywhere, and it changes differently everywhere at different velocity. So to me, is that then AI has to be something that is very localized, right? So you're right. The big countries and frankly, right, in AI, they're really two leading lights in the world, which is US and China, right? That's about it, right? The rest of the guys were either playing catch up or always just observing, right? So and from a country policy standpoint, there's no question Singapore is more is way ahead in terms of thinking about how to be a maker of AI rather than just a user of AI, right? So I think it's very important going forward that not just Malaysia or Singapore to be a good maker of AI. I think it is responsible for each country to be a maker of AI to a certain degree by themselves, simply because AI is a technology about your own culture. There's no way, DeepSeek or OpenAI are going to focus a lot on, the specific culture of Malaysia. So we will have to take a certain level of initiative to do what generally known as the sovereign AI. And obviously, like Singapore and Malaysia, we are not very big countries, right? So we don't have like the kind of budget that China has and the US has. Then this becomes the nuance, right? Like exactly how do you partner with these guys in order to achieve your outcome that you want with your sovereign AI is something that will take maybe 2 hours conversation.
Super. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here. Sheryl, do you want to add something here before?
No, I think we just locked in our follow-up podcast, which will probably happen at Money 2020. We have our Money Pot booth, which Medhy will also be doing a few guest podcast sessions. So we can definitely have like a follow-up for that. So
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining today. It was a great pleasure to have you, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge and stories that you just shared with us today.
Thank you, Sheryl, and happy birthday to you, Medhy.
Oh, thank you very much. Speak soon. Thank you for listening to What the FinTech podcast. A big thank you to our guest. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and see you next time.